Welcome back to the final and fourth part of the series of trainings on creating powerful leads. Today, we're going to wrap up what we started. I believe that what I've given you is a framework that's effective and powerful when it comes to crafting leads that hook your audience and get them to buy. The skills that I'm teaching in these trainings have the potential to completely revolutionize your business. And I'm really excited to discuss the final type of lead, show you some examples, and then do a little bonus training on how you can use the skills I've taught to create interesting hooks for TikTok videos, given that TikTok is the hot topic these days. And as an aside, as I've previously mentioned, you can use these skills to create amazing Facebook ads, great subject lines for emails, and headlines for advertorials. This is a universal skill. It applies to everything. So the final type of lead we'll be discussing is the story lead. The story lead simply tells a story, an emotionally compelling story that makes an implicit promise showing the prospects how to solve their problems. The key thing about story leads is that they emotionally involve the prospect and create a different type of world, a narrative to resolve a certain problem that prospects are facing. And you'll notice that story leads are extremely common on TikTok as well as Facebook and Instagram. They incorporate elements such as contrarian statements, a unique mechanism, statements that address skepticism, and testimonials. There are a couple ways to structure a story. And one of the most popular ways to do it is to follow the hero's journey. So it starts off with a hero, an ordinary person who is similar to your prospect, and they face some sort of problem. This kickstarts a series of events, and the hero sets off on a journey to solve the problem, and oftentimes come across various characters who provide guidance. And with the newfound knowledge, our hero solves the problem for good. And that obviously is very relevant to your prospect who is facing a similar problem. The structure can also be modified as follows. The hero attempts to do something extraordinary, but people doubt him, and the hero proves them wrong by accomplishing that extraordinary thing. So I think when it comes to story leads, it's a lot easier to show you examples than to describe it in detail. But I do want to mention that story leads are perfect for people who are the least aware. So somebody who is not aware of the problem they're having, the solution, or your products, it's an easy way to overcome skeptics. Because if you try to push a product early on, it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows among people who either aren't too sure about the solution you're providing or aren't even sure about the problem they're having. So story leads are the most indirect way and the most effective way to get skeptics and the lesser aware people on board with your offer. So let's go through a couple examples. I have listed here two of the classic ones, and you may have already heard of them. They laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play. You can see there's no secret that's being mentioned. There's no problem or solution. This is a statement that could directly come from a story, from like a fiction book. But there is an implicit promise in this. It's very much implied. This person supposedly, just from this one sentence, you can tell this person clearly in the past didn't have much musical talent and no one expected much from them. This is like this modified structure, right? Hero attempts to do something extraordinary, people doubt him, hero proves them wrong. This is the narrative that this example is following, right? But when you start to play, well, what happened there? How did this person go from being laughed at to having people being impressed? So there is a huge story there, and obviously the offer is heavily tied to the transformation the hero underwent. Another story is the hero or the man in the Hathaway shirt. And I can't really say too much here. I'll show you the ad and then we can discuss it. It's a classic Ogilvy ad, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about it. And then finally, I'm going to show you some more traditional direct response ideas, examples. And from there, like I said, we'll do some bonus training with some examples of TikTok leads that you can use. And you'll see that they fit right into the concepts that I've been teaching in the past 4 videos. So I'm going to show you some examples of story leads that follow different styles. And these styles are well suited for a various number of businesses. So the first one I'm going to show you is a classic ad from David Ogilvy's agency from back in the day. And this story is very different compared to the ones I'll be showing you next. This one, let me just scroll up here. The story is told from the image. And if you are in e-commerce, working for an e-commerce brand, or building an e-commerce brand, then a lot of times the story can be told from the image. And in this case, the text, the copy that goes along with the image, isn't the storytelling that we would think it is. It's a little different. The headline here is "The Man in the Hathaway Shirt." Okay? And that, if you think about it, the headline isn't something that hooks you in immediately. Or it doesn't seem like it, based on the trainings and the concepts I've been teaching here. But there's something else at work here. When you take a look at the picture of this distinguished older gentleman with an eye patch wearing a well-fitted shirt, and then you look at the headline, "The Man in the Hathaway Shirt," all of a sudden, there's curiosity here. It's more than just, hooking you in with a secret or a promise. When you look at this image, it evokes certain emotions. He looks very intriguing. He looks very distinguished, as I said, and it's very aspirational. If a man in their 30s, 40s, 50s wants to look well dressed, this is kind of an aspirational image. And what this reminds me of is the newer trend. Although the ads aren't as frequent as they used to be, the most interesting man in the world. Dos Equis, that brand, that beer brand, used to run those commercials in like the mid 2000s to early 2010s, I guess. It's been a while since we've seen those commercials. So it definitely is an aspirational ad, and the story it's telling is very aspirational. Because if you look at the text, it just goes straight into the shirt, right? American men are beginning to realize that it's ridiculous to buy good suits and then spoil the effect by wearing an ordinary, mass-produced shirt. Hence the growing popularity of Hathaway shirts, which are in a class by themselves. Hathaway shirts remain and so on. So they make you look younger and more distinguished. The image is telling a story that's aspirational, that connects to the product. So the product itself becomes aspirational. And so this lead, this kind of angle, I should say, is very powerful. And if you're in e-commerce and you're working with a brand that doesn't rely too heavily on direct response tactics, this is something that you should think about, where the product itself becomes aspirational based on the images, based on the setting, based on the characters. Obviously, the text plays a role here, but it's just supporting the story being told by the image. So this is something definitely to consider when you're thinking about story leads. It's not just about the story being told via text. The image plays a huge role. And if you're on Facebook or TikTok, you can take elements of this and apply it to your own ads. And we'll probably take a look in a bit at how we can apply the strategies I'm talking about to modern forms of advertising. The next example I want to show you is the one we've already spoken about. It's the piano story. They laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, again, you're telling a story. This is more traditional story lead. Arthur had just played the Rosary. The room rang with applause. I decided that this would be a dramatic moment for me to make my debut. To the amazement of my friends, I strode confidently over to the piano and sat down. Jack is up to his old tricks, somebody chuckled. So you can see it just starts in the middle of a story. Again, the hero does something, people doubt him, and then he shocks everyone by achieving some kind of result. So the story naturally transitions into the pitch for the product, and there's a call to action at the bottom. So this is a great format to follow as well, where you start with a story, an actual story, and it transitions into the pitch for the product. Very basic format. It's not as lengthy or long form as the examples I'm about to show you next. But again, this is something that can be used as a short advertorial for selling some kind of product. The next example is something we've also talked about in prior trainings. This is from Blissy. I changed my sleeping habits after watching a supermodel sleep on the plane. This story, again, triggers certain emotions, right? It hits certain pain points. Maybe you're not wondering about your sleeping habits, but people know, you got to get your beauty sleep, right? So throwing in this connection to a supermodel sleeping on the plane, that evokes a certain kind of image. And the fact that you are changing your sleeping habits, the hero of the story is changing their sleeping habits after seeing a supermodel sleep, there's kind of an implied secret and an implied promise in there as well. I tried the celeb favorite trick for 7 days and I'm never going back. Very intriguing story. There's an implicit secret and promise here. This is how you write a good headline for a story. It's very similar. It's similar to the piano headline and the Hathaway headline in the sense that it's not directly telling you what's going on, but it's implying certain things just from the structure and the word choice in the headline. Now, if you scroll down, it's very much like the piano lead, where you start right from the beginning of the story. The last flight I was on, I sat next to a stunning tall brunette, who I'm pretty sure was some kind of supermodel. She was exotic, beautiful, and had great complexion, amazing hair. A long 17 hours later, and we were touching down when the cabin lights went on. I knew I was a mess, as I always am on long flights, so I was pretty used to it by now. But when I turned to look at the girl next to me, she still looked like an absolute stunner. Is she even a real person? That's so smart, bringing your own pillowcase. And then, she's obviously using this silk pillowcase for her beauty sleep, and it transitions into the pitch for the product. You describe the product. And an interesting thing here, and obviously this is something that you can incorporate into your marketing as well, is the story doesn't end there. After pitching the product, it goes back to the original hero of the story, and it talks about how she ordered the product and what her experience was like. So it's very much like a testimonial in the form of a story. Makes you want to read it more and more. And then final thoughts, and finally, this call to action to buy the product. So that's an element worth testing out for all of you. Incorporating the testimonial as part of the story. And I really like this format for e-com because you can pretty much sell any product, especially if it's targeted towards women. You can literally change the product here and it could work. Like, I changed my such and such skincare routine after seeing a supermodel, sleep on the plane or something. You could keep the structure of the story, but change the product and what's happening in the story. So this is a great structure to follow. You can switch out the characters, you can switch out the setting, switch out the product, and get the same result. So highly encourage all of you to follow a format similar to this. Now, let's take a look at some more heavy direct response examples. I think we've been transitioning from the cleaner stories to the more direct response heavy stories here. So this one is for back pain. a course on how to overcome your back pain. My doctor was furious. How saying no to surgery helped me discover targeted spinal release and overcome 25 years of back pain. This is an interesting one because it's a secret lead wrapped up in a story. And it starts off with a woman talking directly to the reader. Hi, my name is Amy Palmer. In the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you about the scariest, most chilling day of my life. Again, building up the anticipation. The day I cursed at my doctor, telling him to go beep himself, before running out of the room, crying my eyes out, building up a lot of emotional tension in the story now, wishing I'd never stepped foot in his office. You see, since 1995, I've suffered from unbearable, agonizing back pain, relating to the reader, showing the pain point here, which is back pain. I felt like I was being stabbed with a rusty knife. This is an analogy that can be very relevant to the reader who may be suffering from back pain. And it lasted all day, every day, really stirring up the emotions here and the pain points. You're really getting into the head of the reader because you're basically talking about their experience at this point. I took so many pills. I gained over 30 pounds of body fat. My husband and I, the relationship was falling apart. They're fighting. He was slipping away. I was terrified he'd ask for a divorce. Really rubbing salt into the wounds here now. And that our sweet children would grow up in a broken home. I was so desperate that I tried everything. Literally, this could be the experience of one of the readers, no doubt. And then it gets into the story. Just when I thought I couldn't get any worse, my doctor sat me down and told me I needed emergency surgery on my spine. My back was so damaged that the discs were about to snap, really creating a nightmare scenario here as well. And then it transitions into, because in the last 6 months, my life has turned around drastically through a strange twist of fate. So you've got the story lead, and you've also got the secret element. You're teasing the secret as part of the story. So it's a very powerful technique. I discovered a simple movement that gave me instant relief and completely got rid of my low back pain and sciatica. So you can see down here, the benefits. Now we're going to get into my favorite technique, which is telling you what the solution isn't, what the secret isn't. Without chiropractors, physical therapy, invasive medical procedures, addictive pain pills, or bogus supplements. Again, teasing, building anticipation. The solution will be revealed little by little. This movement has been verified by top experts from Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. We still don't know what the solution is. NFL players, NBA players, MMA fighters, they also use it. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Doctor approved. It's going to use some fascinations here. I was extremely skeptical. Okay. It's transitioning back into the background of the hero, which is something that you want to start off with after you've finished off the lead and building up anticipation. Blah, blah, blah. Really, by her telling the story, you're empathizing and relating to the reader. Scrolling down, she's goes to, can't feel, live her normal life. She can't find a solution. She's tried everything, acupuncture, personal trainers, nothing works. She fell into deep depression. And here the doctor returns. We're getting back to the story. He says, you have a bulging disc and you're going to need surgery, otherwise you're going to end up paralyzed, creating this huge nightmare scenario. So now we're kind of moving forward the story, right? I was afraid that I'd spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair, but he found someone, he thought he could help me. Now we're getting back to that structure that I was talking about, the hero's journey. The hero is facing a problem, a challenge. They go out on a journey to get it fixed, and they find someone who gives them the guidance. They make a big discovery. The discovery is the solution that you're selling, and from there, the hero story kind of turns around, and he or she is able to achieve results that the reader wants. So in this case, a doctor comes out of the blue, and he has all these credentials, and they finally meet, and he explains the unique mechanism behind the solution, and it changes the hero's life. So this is a very traditional direct response story lead, and it's something that you should consider when coming up with a structure for your leads. Now, let's take a look at one last example here, and then we're going to go back to a different kind of structure for a story lead that a lot of successful offers have used. And then finally, we'll wrap up this training with some applications to modern forms of advertising like TikTok. This one we talked about, this new headline that I talked about here is a secret lead, and we talked about this one briefly when we were discussing secret leads. But this one is also a secret lead wrapped up in a story, so this could be easily classified as a story lead. Rogue cosmetologist breaks science to reveal the Divine Locks method, that's your secret, to rejuvenating the thick, healthy, and beautiful hair of your youth. Now look at the subheadline. Plus the true story of how a woman's hair nightmare sparked an unforgettable journey to discover this rogue cosmetologist's secret to revitalizing a radiant head of hair in as little as 2 weeks. So you can see here that you've got a story in the subheadline. And it starts off, as any good story lead does, in the middle of the action. It was my daughter's wedding, but everyone was looking at me. My daughter sat 2 chairs over. It was her big day. And even though she was smiling during the speeches, I could see the tears building up in her eyes. Really intriguing, really building up curiosity. What's going on here? She stood when it was her turn to speak, but after only 2 words, she burst out crying and crashed back into her chair sobbing, hooking the reader with this next line. All because I had made a terrible mistake. My name is Rebecca Armstrong. 2 days before the wedding, I went to the hair salon. I'm no regular at the salon because my hair isn't anything like as thick and beautiful as it used to be. So again, agitating the pain points here, agitating the emotions. But how is this related to the daughter's wedding? Okay, scrolling down, I was having fun, but not for long, because eventually stunned me back around to face the mirror. My throat was already tight, like it was being gripped by a 300-pound wrestler. A lot of good analogies here. I did everything, or a simile, I should say. That's a simile. Lots of metaphors and similes. I did everything I could to stop myself from bursting into tears. She had totally ruined my hair. Okay, now we're understanding how this connects to the wedding. It's really keeping everyone on edge because it's a very emotional story. A wedding, especially your children's wedding, is a huge, huge event in parents' lives. And this offer is definitely targeted to women over the age of 40. So this is an event that a lot of people can relate to. A lot of the target audience can relate to. So again, I tried everything, different hairstyles, filling in the gaps with eyeshadow, thickening shampoo, head wraps, a yogurt and honey concoction, all the solutions that the readers have probably tried in the past and it hasn't worked. So again, telling you what the solution is not. My daughter's wedding would become the most mortifying event of my life, especially because of what happened before she began crying. But also start my journey to uncover the Divine Locks method for revitalizing your thick, full, and youthful hair. Again, teasing the solution, teasing the secret, and this is gonna, oh, here we go. This is something really cool that they do. They start adding testimonials, building up social proof. When you show social proof before revealing the secret, it also builds up anticipation. Because if it works for others, then you really want to know what the secret is. So injecting a few testimonials is a great strategy before revealing the secret. Now, scrolling down, it gets back into the story about the wedding. And, obviously the wedding was a disaster. Her hair was looking terrible at the wedding. She was embarrassed. The daughter was embarrassed and upset. But I thank God every single day that this isn't where the story ended. Now it's time to get back to the hero's journey. Because just 24 hours later, I'd be on a 5-hour road trip to meet the cosmetologist behind the Divine Locks method. Again, you start off the story with this traumatic event, whether it's being put on the spot to get emergency surgery and facing the risk of being paralyzed, or facing this emotionally traumatic event where you're embarrassed by your hair and the way it looks at your daughter's wedding, and then boom, you're taken off into this hero's journey. You meet someone who helps you make a big discovery, a huge breakthrough that gives you the results. So the rest of the story is going to be about meeting this cosmetologist, learning what the Divine Locks method is, this unique mechanism, and finding the solution that fixes this woman's hair. The hero emerges victorious from the story. So classic story lead. Now, let's go back and let's look at another very definitive structure for a story lead. I think this is going to be a game plan for all of you to follow when you start writing your own story leads. So let's check it out now. So another structure for a story lead is as follows. You start in the middle of the action for the story. Then you agitate the pain points in an emotional way. This should feel like a punch to the gut to both the hero of the story and the prospects. You then provide further details on what happened, but always leave the story unresolved. From there, you transition to a brief description of the major discovery the hero makes. This is essentially an implicit promise to the prospects that you will share the solution, which should be an emotionally satisfying secret. Then you describe the big promise and the benefits without revealing the solution. And finally, you describe secondary promises without revealing the solution. So to see this in action, let's take a look at an example. In 2020, one of the top products that did 9 figures in sales, like at least over $100 million in sales, was Resurge. Resurge was a weight loss supplement, and it started off with this emotional story in the hospital. And let's take a look at how Resurge used this structure to create a very powerful story lead. So you start in the middle of the action. You start with a woman's voice saying, Dr. Lee, how bad is it this time? Then you get to the pain points. Dr. Lee says, it's not good. His heart just can't support his weight. He's asleep now, but he doesn't have much time. I'm very sorry, but there's really not much we can do. And the woman says, oh my God, John, wake up. John, wake up, wake up. So clearly a very dramatic moment. You start the story off with a bang, basically. And then you just leave the story unresolved. John then starts speaking, the hero of the story. I thank God every morning for allowing me to wake up, and especially for what happened next, because miraculously, what happened next took my life on the most dramatic, unexpected turn possibly imaginable. You're teasing some kind of solution. You're teasing some kind of discovery. We don't know really what's going to happen. From there, the major discovery is described. John says, and although this story is painful and embarrassing to tell, God's given me the courage to do so because what happened next led to a breakthrough discovery that not only saved my life, but could very well save yours too. A breakthrough discovery that has proven what the underlying root cause of excess belly fat, unwanted weight gain, premature aging, and disease truly is. And as you'll see, it has nothing to do with genetics, diet, or exercise. So again, you're teasing the major discovery. You're not telling much, but something interesting. You describe the primary promise. A shocking discovery which led to a simple after-dinner ritual that incinerated 59 pounds of health-destroying, ugly belly fat in just weeks, which left me barely recognizable to my friends and family, and even to myself when I walked by the bathroom mirror going from this to this. So this is like a secret, but it's also got the story elements to it, because again, you're impressing your friends and family, kind of like the piano lead. Finally, describe the secondary promises. You cast a wide net. Yet more importantly, rescuing me from the imminent life sentence of critical health complications and nasty medications while completely reversing all debilitating symptoms of heart disease and diabetes. The same after-dinner ritual that mysteriously reversed every indicator of aging in ways that utterly define what we've been taught to believe is possible. So there you have it. This Resurge lead follows this modified story lead structure that starts in the middle of the action. It then teases the solution while leaving the story unresolved, and then makes a bunch of promises. It's really a very effective way to hook a reader and get them to read the story. So with that being said, I've basically covered all types of story leads here for direct response as well as for e-commerce businesses. I want to show you how you can use the concepts I've been talking about in these 4 trainings and how they apply to, let's say, TikTok. Let's take a couple minutes to look at some good TikTok leads. All right, so this is the first example. It's a brand that's selling a infusion water bottle so you can infuse your water with all sorts of flavors. And this one is a combination of a secret lead and a story lead. You'll see the scenario they set up, and obviously this video did well. It's got about 2 million likes organically, so let's check it out. So pretty simple, straight to the point. It reveals a secret, then demonstrates the product. The product itself is pretty eye-catching. It's got a unique feature and benefit. So the product does a selling on its own. But creating the scenario, this is an interesting secret/story lead that's pretty effective in capturing people's attention. So that's the first example. Let's move on to the second example. So here's the second example. It's a combination of a story lead and a problem solution lead. Let's check it out. Pretty solid, right? Not much to say here. You present a situation that incorporates a problem, and then you provide the solution. So, works really well. This one got over 97,000 likes organically. Does the trick. All right, last example for the day. I'll be sharing more in future trainings as we go on, so keep an eye out. But for now, I'm just going to share the third and final example. I've shared this company's ads before, but this one I thought was a really good problem solution lead, and it's just very eye-catching. So here we go. All right, I may have to cut out the music there, otherwise YouTube will give me a copyright warning. So it's, the headlines really tell you all you need to know. It presents the problem, it shows the problem happening in the video, and then it showcases the solution, which is the shower case. Pretty straightforward, and this is something you can use, especially if your product solves a very clear problem. So there you go. That's it for the 4-part training on leads. Hopefully you found this pretty helpful. And, I'll be back very soon with more videos on copywriting and how you can take the techniques that I teach for direct response and apply them to what's working right now across TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I think the principles of direct response apply to everything, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to take those time-tested principles and apply them to your current business. So with that being said, this wraps up the 4-part training series. I'll be back very soon with some more, hopefully valuable trainings in the future. Talk soon.